Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to you all, and welcome to the fourth edition of the TRConnect webinar series, this one on cross-cultural communications in the post-COVID world. I'm Michael Barrett, Events and CSR Head at TR Business.
And I'm Charlotte Turner, Editorial Director at TR Business. It's great to see so many of you here again today. Whether you're watching live or a recording of this webinar, which will of course be available shortly after we've finished. As with all our previous webinars, the audience is truly global, so it's great to see such a strong and broad interest from across all world regions and all industry sectors. The content of today's webinar is really quite broad, and actually it's deceptive, the title. We'll be discussing how different customer segments behave and traveling and shopping in particular, and how they plan to travel and shop again when international flights resume on a more meaningful level. As the mindset data will reveal, the various gender, age, traveler type and level of income segments will all determine what different behavior these different shoppers will take. So we'll have a look forward there to exploring this further later on. Michael?
Thanks, Charlotte. Yes, well, things are certainly changing fast in the world we live in today. Some countries open up and relax restrictions. Others are locking down again with a second surge in cases of the COVID pandemic. The international tourism industry lost over $300 billion in revenues in the first 5 months of this year. And that's 3 times the losses it made during the 2009 global economic crisis. So whether tourism numbers, airport traffic, or retailer sales figures, as we've read recently on TR Business, 2020 has seen a downward spiraling trend. And although there are signs and pockets of recovery in some markets, who knows when the return to normality will be? All we can do is prepare as best we can for the future upturn and hope it comes sooner rather than later. And that's where TRConnect and TR Marketplace, the digital events we've launched in the midst of this global pandemic, come into play. We hope that by sharing the data, the new concepts, current strategies, and future plans by the various speakers we've had the pleasure of hosting during this current series, with more to come during the TR Marketplace at the end of September, we're facilitating new ideas and introducing some nourishing food for thought for your business on how best to adapt and survive, then thrive, hopefully, in the post-pandemic environment. And let's hope it's not too far away. Charlotte?
Before we go into today's program and hear the first of the presentations with the consumer insights from Mindset, we're going to ask our speakers to introduce themselves briefly, so in case you're not already familiar with them, you'll understand their area of expertise and how their insights will be able to help your business going forward. Just a quick reminder that you can ask questions of all our panelists today at any point in time, so please do use the Q&A button for that. We will have a few audience polls once again to gauge your views on some of the themes we'll be discussing today, so please do take part in those. I know that those have been very popular in the past and people have found them very useful. We hope and trust you will find it again constructive this time round. Now let's turn to each of our panelists, starting with Clara from Mindset, to tell us briefly about you and your company.
So hello everyone, thank you very much Charlotte, thank you Michael for the introduction, and it's a great pleasure to be back in this TRConnect webinar series. So as Charlotte mentioned, I work for Mindset and I am the Travel Retail Research Director of Mindset, which means that I take care of all of the ad hoc research we do for our clients in travel retail. So Mindset is a market research agency based in Switzerland, and we, as I guess many of you know, we specialize fully in the travel and travel retail industry. So that means that our aim is really to understand the traveling consumer, understand how they behave, but also in this case how their behavior is changing in these very complicated times. And the reason I'm here today, well, here virtually, is to share with you some highlights of research we've conducted about how people used to behave with regards to travel retail, but more importantly, how those behaviors are going to change in the future. And in the context of today's presentation, what kind of variations do we see across demographics, across regions, across different types of travelers when it comes to their expected future behavior. So again, it's a great pleasure to be here, and I really hope you will find the presentation useful and insightful. Thank you.
Thank you, Clara. Derek, over to you to introduce yourself.
Well, good afternoon from a sunny Dublin. Welcome to everyone, and thank you, Michael and Charlotte, for the invitation to contribute today. My name is Derek Hughes. I'm the CEO of the Institute of International Retail based in Dublin. We provide professional development for retail professionals through industry-led training courses for the travel retail community. The IIR, we've also partnered with the Duty Free Council to create the Duty Free World Council Academy, which is focused on the training and upskilling of staff in our industry. The DFWC Academy supports the duty-free and travel industry by creating a platform for online e-learning professional development and delivering a skilled and motivated cohort and step changes with the ability to attract and retain staff within our industry. We initially launched the certificate course in travel retail, and we've just, with the DFWC Academy, we've launched the Return to Work protocols, which I'd encourage everyone to sign up to and get their staff signed up to. So it's a great opportunity to be able to discuss those in a bit more detail later this afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. And now Trevor.
Thanks very much, Charlotte. I'm just going to try and share my screen, if that's possible, please.
1 second. Okay, you should be able to go there, Trevor.
Okay, thanks very much. How's that, Michael?
Yeah, all good.
Fantastic. Well, firstly, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. And a big thank you to Nigel Hardy, Charlotte, Michael, and the TR business team for inviting me to join you today. Certainly looking forward to hearing the presentations and also receiving some questions. Just a little bit about our business, TravConsult. My lovely wife and business partner, Lily, and myself started TravConsult in 2002. And we specialise in Asian market insights for aviation, tourism and retail development. Basically what we do is we help and work with executives, organisations and teams within the aviation, tourism and retail industries to better understand, better engage and very, very importantly, better sell to the guests, customers, visitors from China, India, Japan, South Korea and Indonesia. Over the past 18 years, we've worked with international airports, international hotel chains, integrated resorts, destinations, small, medium and large, attractions, theme parks, travel, retail, duty-free, financial organisations and a lot of trade organisations as well, helping them to really work with specific Asian markets. And once again, it's great to be here today and I look forward to hearing the other presentations. Thanks very much, Michael.
Thanks, Trevor.
Thanks. And now over to Chloe.
Hello everybody, or g'day from Brisbane, Queensland, Australia. My name's Chloe Nguyen from Brisbane Airport Corporation and I am the Retail Marketing Manager from the Consumers Department. First of all, I really hope everybody is safe and well. I know there's a lot of changes happening at the moment. The borders are constantly opening and closing here in Australia, so I really hope that wherever you are in the world that you're safe, you're well, your teams are together. Now, my role with Brisbane Airport, I'm responsible for driving sales essentially from both our international and domestic terminal businesses. And that is through a combination of marketing, retail operations, retailer engagement strategies. And we've actually recently launched an e-commerce platform called Brisbane Marketplace. And the intention of that was really to, again, in this period, we've got a lot of retailers and our duty-free operator, Lot A Duty-Free, holding a lot of stock. How can we still help them drive sales and I guess minimise their costs by helping them really move products during this time? So I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to hearing from everybody else this evening. So thank you for having me.
Thank you, Chloe. And last but not by no means least, John.
Hi, good morning, everybody. My name's John Garner. I've been in the duty-free retail business for more than 30 years. Started my career originally with Aldous International, and over the years built a very substantial business with various in-flight operators across the globe. During my time, I've worked with retail concessions on American Airlines, Delta, Virgin Atlantic, South African Airways, Gulf Air, to name just a few. So I have a lot of experience of what actually happens to the aviation business, how the business physically and mechanically works, and also when things go wrong, what does go wrong with an instance like we had with SARS. I'm still active in the business through my own company, which is called the In-Flight Consultancy Company. I actually retired last year and then got so bored I restarted the company.
Thank you very much, John. That's great. We look forward to hearing from you all during this session today. Before we hand over to Clara for our first presentation, we're going to run our first poll to gauge the audience's views on this topic. Michael, if you could load up the first poll for us, please. So here we go. It's in two parts here. So the first part, should airports and their commercial partners adopt different strategies and approaches when communicating to different nationalities and cultures in general? I'll be interested to see if this opinion changes throughout the course of this webinar. We sincerely hope it does. And the second part, are different communication approaches necessary to reassure passengers about health and safety when traveling in the post-COVID environment? If you could please submit your votes now, that would be fantastic.
Okay, we've got quite a few coming in. We've got about 60% of the participants have voted so far. That's going up fast.
If you could make your votes now, that would be great.
And another few seconds. We're almost there. 3/4 have voted. We'll end it. Still a few votes coming in. You got 5, 4, 3, 2. Click that button. 1. Here we go. We're ending the poll. Okay. I'm going to share those results. There we go.
Okay, interesting. So 91% of you say yes, the first part, that airports and commercial partners should adopt different strategies and approaches. And secondly, 87, slightly less, 86% believe that these different communications approaches are necessary when reassuring passengers about health and safety when traveling in the post-COVID environment. Okay, that's more or less in line with what I was hoping for, but again, we may even see those numbers change as we go through the webinar. Thanks very much for that, Michael. Without further ado, I would like to pass over control to Clara for the first presentation of today.
Clara, can you share your screen? Okay.
Okay, I hope you're all able to see my screen and to hear me well. So hello again to everyone. And so to begin this seminar, I would like to share with you some insights about research we've recently conducted, specifically about the post-COVID behavior of travelers globally. And today we're going to be focusing specifically on how it changes across different demographic groups and across regions. So just before we start looking at the data, a few words about how we actually collected this data. So everything you will see is based on online interviews, which we conducted in June 2020 with our database of international travelers whom we had previously recruited at 60 airports worldwide. So in terms of the target group, we focused specifically on international travelers, and they needed to have traveled at least twice in the last 12 months and to have visited a travel retail shop at least once during this time period. So we wanted to make sure there were people who had an interest in the channel and who were at least potential shoppers for our channel. In terms of sample sizes, we made sure that we had enough sample size for the different groups, such as business versus leisure travelers, but also frequent versus occasional travelers, as well as different demographics, such as ages and gender groups and so on. So you will see we're able to highlight quite a few interesting differences. So the first topic is, I guess, what is on everyone's mind is whether people will start traveling or not as soon as they are allowed to, and if so, how fast they will go back to airports. So we see, so the purpose of the presentation today is not to go into details of each of the topics, but really to highlight what differences exist. But of course you will receive, just let us know if you would like to receive this presentation. We're happy to share it so that you can dig deeper into the results. But a few points that I find very interesting here. We see that frequent travelers, but also business travelers, those from Asia Pacific, as well as younger travelers from 28 to 35 years old, are the most likely to say they will immediately go to the airports. So this is very good news because, as you know, these are very high potential travelers in terms of spend, in terms of footfall and conversion for our industry. So it's good to see that hunger to start traveling immediately as soon as possible. Then we still have a majority of travelers who say they will not start traveling immediately, but they plan to do so within the first 6 months when borders are open again for their country and the restrictions are lifted. And we see this is very often the case for Chinese, and more specifically for travelers from tier 2 cities in China, interestingly. And then as we move towards the right hand side of the screen, we see that in general, all the travelers are more likely to say that they will wait more than 6 months. But in any case, the great majority of travelers expects to be traveling again in the same way they used to within the next 1 year. Then we also wanted to understand how do travelers expect their travel frequency will be impacted. And we see that obviously for frequent travelers, for business travelers, but also for those from Asia Pacific, they expect to reduce only their business travel. Whereas we see that infrequent travelers, the younger, but also those age 60 plus and Europeans expect to reduce their flying for leisure. And then what you have in the middle are those who expect to reduce all sorts of travel, so both business and leisure. And we see this is the case for both tier 1 and tier 2 Chinese, which is, of course, an important point to keep in mind, given the importance of this demographic. Then the next question that comes to mind, obviously, is why would these people reduce their travel frequency? So when it comes to business trip, the main reason why people expect to fly less for business is simply the fact that the share of online meetings will increase. So they expect that in the context of their business, there won't be such a need to travel. And this is especially the case for travelers from Asia Pacific. Then the second reason is that in general, a slower economic situation will require fewer international trips. So they simply expect trips won't be as necessary. And the third one is that the future business events will be cancelled. It's the expectation. Then in terms of reasons to reduce leisure trips is first of all the fact that travelers will prefer to avoid crowds or large gatherings at the airport, on the plane, but also at destination. So they're a bit nervous about getting in quite a packed environment. So this raises the question of how important it is to reassure travelers, but we'll get to that in a minute again. And again, we see here travelers from Asia Pacific are the most worried about this. Then second in line is the fact that they're afraid to fall ill while they're abroad and all the complications that this implies. And then travel restrictions also represent a very important barrier, especially for travelers from tier 1 cities in China. Then we also ask our respondents whether they plan to change their international trips, because one thing that I guess we've all observed is that on the one hand, people maybe not plan to travel less in the next few months, but also they have shifted their focus to different destinations. And in fact, this is especially the case for women. Interestingly, 66% say they might consider changing the type of trips they make, or maybe the destination where they go to, but also Chinese from Tier 1, travelers aged 28 to 35 years old, and those from Asia Pacific. So quite a mix of different types of profile. And in fact, we see that there's a number of countries that travelers expect to be avoiding, at least in the short term. So it's the US, China, Italy, UK, India, and France are the countries that travelers are the most worried about flying to. Then, and we get to the core of the topic for our business, obviously, is the impact of this new situation on their expected behavior in duty-free. So we've seen that there's two demographics that are the most likely to say they will avoid visiting duty-free shops in the future. These are travelers from Middle East and Africa, but also, interestingly, the youngest generation, those from 18 to 27-year-old, are more likely than the rest of travelers to say they won't visit the duty-free shop. However, if you look at the percentages, the good news is that this remains only a minority, 23 or 22% of them, depending on the demographic. So still the majority are open or willing to go to duty-free stores. Now, if we look specifically at duty-free non-buyers, so those who are actually saying they will not buy in duty-free anymore, what they told us actually, and you see 93% of frequent travelers told us that, is that if they don't buy in duty-free, they will switch their purchases to another type of store. And we see in that case, the number one alternative is physical stores in their home country, followed by online, which is more important for Asia Pacific travelers and frequent travelers. So we're bound to see some sort of shift in the behavior, and this is something to be followed very, very closely. Then when it comes to the way they behave at the airport, obviously, the majority of travelers have told us they will change how they behave when they are at the airport. In fact, this is more important, again, for travelers from Asia Pacific. So you will see already that this is a group that tends to behave quite differently from the others, but also those from Middle East and Africa, business travelers, and frequent travelers. So these are the four groups that we expect will change the most their behavior at the airport. And what do we mean by those changes? You can see them listed here. The first one is to isolate from the crowds. The second one, to avoid interacting with other passengers, and in general, to be more attentive to the environment. And everything that you have on the side, and I'm sorry, I don't have time to go through all of these differences, but you see how many of them there are. So all of these demographic groups are more likely to behave in that way. So for example, Tier 2 Chinese are more likely to expect they will isolate from the crowds, whereas travelers aged 60 years old or more are more likely to avoid interacting with other passengers. So these are all indicators that need to be taken into consideration very carefully when it comes to how to reassure travelers, how to engage with them, how to still create an experience. We have to keep in mind that the expectations, the fears, and the behavior won't be the same across all demographics. Then a very important topic for many of the categories in our industry is the interaction with the sales staff. And obviously we wanted to understand from our travelers whether they would refrain from being in proximity with the sales staff, because we understand this is a pain point for retail in general, not only for travel retail, of course. And we've seen that once again, certain demographics are more likely to refrain from being in touch with the sales staff. And it's the case, once again, for travelers from Asia Pacific, but also females and business and frequent travelers who also tend to behave quite similarly to each other. On the other hand, we have, interestingly, Europeans, Americans, but also travelers aged 60 years or more who say they will just interact as they used to. And then we have other groups who say they will interact, but only if needed, and if they do so, they will take many precautions. So very clearly, overall, there's a trend of being more careful when it comes to being in proximity with the sales staff. Then quite linked to this topic is another one, which is testing and trying the products in the duty-free shop. So we see that about half of travelers from Middle East and Africa are worried about this and will not do it. Same 47% of travelers from Asia Pacific. Whereas on the other hand, if you look at the right-hand side, we have Europeans, but also males and infrequent travelers who will say they will just test products as usual. So this has a lot of implications, of course, for categories such as perfumes, but also spirits, confectionery, where testing and experiencing the product in the store was quite an important way to create an experience. And we touched ground on this already in one of the previous webinars where we were talking about the in-store experience. So it really shows that the experience, at least from our perspective, in fact, it needs to be tailored according to the different demographics, according to the different cultural groups as well. Then another topic is about pre-ordering online and collecting upon boarding or at arrival, so online pre-order. And we see that there's two groups, frequent and business travelers, who are the most likely to be interested in this service. So almost 1/3 of these travelers would expect this to be made available and would like to use this service if possible. So it shows that this is something that has been discussed at length over the past few years in the industry, whether this service is really an expectation of travelers, and we see that it is very likely to become more important for these two high potential groups. So I know I'm very conscious that I showed you a lot of data in very little time. So before I finish, I would like to just summarize what characterizes a few of the demographics that we covered and what makes them different compared to the others. So the first one that we've seen coming up a lot as behaving differently comparing to the other groups are millennials. And what we've learned about them is that, first of all, they're more likely than the average to be willing to fly within the first 6 months. So they're actually willing to start flying, but maybe not immediately. They will wait 6 months. And interestingly, they're quite cautious about visiting the duty-free shop. So they're more likely than others to say they will refrain from visiting the store. So a priority will be to drive footfall again with millennials, reassure them and get them to visit the store again. Because in fact, many of them say they will isolate from the crowds, avoid interacting with other passengers. So they want to travel again, but they want to do it in a very safe way. Then that also applies to whether or not they will test and try products in the store. They expect to be more careful and do it only if necessary. And a few of the points that we also found out that we didn't have time to cover them in this presentation today, but we've seen that they expect in their daily lives to spend more time on social media, watching videos on YouTube, searching information online and shopping online. So they're the most likely of all the demographics to be doing all of this. So of course, it also has an impact on how they spend their money and their time at the airport. And lastly, when it comes to the in-flight experience, we've seen that this group is highly concerned about the hygiene of the seat of the plane, and they will actually clean it themselves before sitting down, and they would also prefer to bring their own food on board the plane. So in fact, and I found this relatively surprising, but we found that millennials are actually amongst the most cautious groups and the ones who would need to be the most reassured to make sure they start traveling and shopping in duty-free very soon again. Then another group that we've seen coming up as very different from the others are business and frequent travelers. So we group these because we found they have a lot of similarities to each other, and they're more likely than the average to be willing to fly internationally again immediately. But one important point is that they expect to spend more time with their just mobile tablet or laptop at the airport instead of shopping around. So here, the challenge would be to shift their attention from their own device to back to the stores as they used to do in the past. They will interact with the staff if needed, but taking precautions. And interesting, they will feel intimidating about passengers wearing a face mask. That was another question that we asked, whether or not this was an expectation of travelers that everyone would be wearing a face mask. And actually for business and frequent travelers, a lot of them were saying actually this would make them worried about the situation rather than reassure them. Then another very important group that I mentioned quite often during the presentation were travelers from Asia Pacific. And we see that they're quite willing to fly internationally again immediately, but they will reduce the frequency of business trips due to the reasons that we mentioned before, such as, for example, the fact that many meetings will be done online, or that simply there won't be many meetings happening due to the economic slowdown. A very important thread, but we could also see it as an opportunity, is that a lot of them are planning to switch some of their duty-free purchases to the online channel. And again, another challenge will be to still create an engaging in-store experience with them, because they will refrain from being in proximity to the sales staff and avoid testing or trying products in the duty-free shop. Same as the other groups we've mentioned, they will avoid touching some areas of the seat on board and refrain from eating or drinking some of items offered on board. And interestingly, their perception of face masks is quite different, and this can obviously be linked to the fact that there's much more of an habit in Asia Pacific to wear face masks, because in fact, this demographic would feel much safer and more reassured if the airline staff would wear face masks on the plane. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope you found this data interesting. As I mentioned, we would be very happy to share this presentation with you if you would like to learn more about one of the demographics that you saw me mentioning today. And I also welcome any questions, so please don't hesitate. Thanks again.
All right. And I think we've mentioned that the start presentations will all be available on trbusiness.com very shortly after the webinar, probably sometime later today, European time. And you are already asking questions of the speakers, so thank you for those questions coming in. Somebody raised their hand. If you, rather than raising your hand, if you could send questions in the Q&A, the chat mode, that would be great. So now, taking all that data, the Institute for International Retail, IIR, is translating all that into actionable recommendations for staff on the shop floor, the frontline staff. And we're going to hear now from Tudes from IIR about how they are putting that into training for the staff. So Derek, could you share your screen and your video, please? I'll just get Derek online. Are you there, Derek?
You got that, Michael?
I've got you there. Okay, we'll hear you. I'm asking you to start your video. There we go. We can see your screen as well.
Excellent. Oh, okay, well, again, thank you, Michael, and thank you, Clara, for those terrific insights. So the presentation and the training isn't seeking to replicate all the information from Mindset. And also what's important is, as mentioned at the start, we have just completed the return to work protocols with the DFWC Academy. Now, the presentation is not meant to replicate the training. What it will do is highlight some of the key aspects. So independently, I would recommend, and we can share the details, how to log into the DFWCA protocols, return to work protocols, which were submissions from 120 leading industry players with regard to their own protocols and sharing them with DFWC. So the presentation will also include some insights from Mindset, and will also incorporate our own research. Now, we are also happy to share an animation video which will give you some insights into the protocols, but it's not exclusively the protocols either. So moving on to the reopening of the duty-free shops, we estimate about 60% of duty-free shops are now open and operating around the globe. And again, it was interesting with the initial question, the poll question, because what we are really advocating in IIR is that the industry needs to come forward on a global approach rather than a regional approach. And because we have global travelers, we need a global message, and we need the traveler and the potential consumer, shopper, feeling very confident to travel through duty-free and travel retail stores. So this confidence really needs to be brought upon by a global approach and global protocols. So that is recommendation one, and it is against some of the poll findings, but that is a strong recommendation. So the setting the scene within the industry, IIOR's insight will support the industry stakeholders while they open the duty-free and travel retail shops. Again, we urge a consistent approach, global approach, and the overarching aim is following this global approach to restore consumer confidence, to shop, and the shopping journey must follow guidelines and reassure both the staff and the traveller that there is a consistent approach and that they can feel confident shopping. As some of the insights with mindset, we can see there is a reluctance and there is a drive towards online. So, slide 5. Setting the scene. So again, passenger numbers, we all know, have fallen dramatically. We do, however, estimate 60% of airport shops are now open. There is a change in shopping habits post-COVID. Again, that mindset research underlines some of those changes. And the changes can show that there is anywhere from an 80 to 90% reluctance to go back to normal shopping habits at airports. Currently, leading retailers have reduced workforce and complexity and are simplifying their decision making. This can drive both retailers' profitability, future profitability, and preparation for future growth acceleration. And I think this is the critical point. It is about planning for future growth acceleration and being prepared. So what now needs to be considered? Retail staff now need to be retrained and upskilled. And again, we strongly recommend the DFWCA Academy certificate as a way to upskill and retrain your staff in this slow period for the industry. However, we must recognize that there will be greater dwell time at airports, which we need to encourage shopping. So our travelers will arrive earlier. They will be prepared to wait. There will be less crowds at airports. So it is a great opportunity to actually, there's a greater reduced numbers traveling, but there is a greater opportunity to sell once we enhance the customer experience and we upskill our sales teams. So there is also a great opportunity to get closer for retailers and the retail brands to get closer to the retail travel market, and more importantly, to the customer and traveler. So the market needs that specialist insight and grasping this opportunity to get closer to the end traveler and consumer. Significantly, there has been this accelerator to online, and this has speeded up the whole online experience by anywhere from 3 to 4 years. COVID has definitely done that. Again, Mindset's insights showed that there's up to an 80% of millennials and Generation Z wishing to purchase online and online duty-free shopping and online airport shopping. So needs to be a greater emphasis on click and collect and pay and collect at airports, and retailers and their brands. All stakeholders must come together on this. The global communication strategy, again, is essential to reassure the traveller and future traveller. And again, in providing that confidence that there are global protocols that can be followed and will be experienced in all airports. So airports are safe places once the protocols are communicated to the staff and are clearly communicated at airports, at the retail stores, to encourage shopping. So we all must work harder to attract shoppers. As flagged, the whole shopping experience needs to be enhanced, and ensuring that customers' confidence is restored. And the mobile technology is going to be critical. Reduce touch points, the whole customer journey, in store and at airports. The touch points must be minimized, and digital is going to be more important than ever. And all the research shows that customers wish to rely on their mobile device for communication. So this is critical that the stakeholders of retailers, airports and brands come together and really embrace digital technology. So the big thing is, how do we restore customer confidence? So as mentioned, a key element is digital. So we'll take you through some points and a case study in digital technology. So the digital signage is going to be critical. Again, reducing the touch points. So the ability to have that clear information and entertainment enhancement to all passengers. The retailers must seek to engage both through digital signage and mobile technology, and the whole integration of both is critical. Again, the business customer and the brands must seek to communicate both digitally and mobile for the consumer, the traveller at airports. So just a small case study in airport concourses. So the first point we have is the digital signage with IPTV live events, streaming live events, that we capture the whole experience of video walls, that again, we link that back to the mobile app for the traveller, and we link that into the retail and restaurants' own in-store offers. So the other key point, which has come back from all the research, is that it is the digital information, digital signage, displays, boards, wayfinding, and linking that back to the ability to live stream onto mobile apps is also very critical. And the broadcasting of news and events, all enhancing the customer experience at airports, really needs to be embraced. Also, the business traveller, the whole environment at airports needs to be enhanced, and they need to feel they will be arriving earlier so that they can work and shop, and that the retailer can swap their promotions and events, and that the business traveller feels very safe to both go shop and to get to the airport in time. So we move on to the cross-cultural effects of COVID on in-store trial and testing. So again, as outlined by Clara, there is anywhere from from Europe, which is showing that to test products, there's a 67% likelihood, and that's broken down between males and infrequent at 65 and 63%. So broad terms, we have somewhere at 35% reluctance to test products. So again, the digital opportunity opens up. And there's some great examples of that we've seen with many of the brands have created. So some of the recommended guidelines for safe customer and product interaction are outlined by product. We have beauty, and we have signage to inform customers to seek advisor assistance for testing. That is really important, and that's come back through our research. And also the input from within the DFWC protocols. There's also fragrance testers to be deployed by beauty advisors and must be regularly disinfected. The removal of makeup creams and testers from the shelves and placing them in drawers, which are only accessible to advisors on request, but that signage needs to be clearly communicated. And again, where possible, seek to supply virtual try-on tools from websites, apps, and in-store digital displays. All tools should be cleaned after every use. Any demonstration tools must be single use and disposed of carefully. Wines and spirits. So where possible, digital technology should be again used to provide through the whole experiential engagement over physical sampling. Each sample must be poured individually and provided at a distance in single use vessel by staff wearing gloves and masks. We move on to confectionery and fine foods. Sampling promoters, ambassadors should wear gloves. Samples should be individually wrapped in portions and offered singly to a customer, respecting distancing, whether it's 1 meter or 2 meter rules. So what we would like to then is share a flavor of some of the training. It isn't the complete DFWC Academy protocols, and it is a slight mixed version. But this is again just to show you an example of the protocols, which are free. You can, as a business, for your employees, you can go on to the Duty Free Academy and register for the protocols. So we'll just take you through some of the animation and some of the summary of the protocols that have been submitted globally. I hope you're capturing the sound there.
No, there's no sound coming out, Tarek. We're just going slightly over time here as well, so if you could just summarize fairly rapidly afterwards. Thank you.
It was on mute.
So we will make the full video with the audio available on the website, as well as the presentation after this webinar. So don't worry about that, Derek.
Okay, so apologies there to the audience, but as mentioned, you can go on to the dutyfreeacademy.com, get the training free of charge, and I'm glad to say the sound will come through clearly. And it's, as mentioned, free of charge, and everyone who does it will receive confirmation of the training. And there is also, for the brands and retailers, the ability to have their own link, so they can see, you can see all your staff who've completed the training, everyone who's completed. So it's a great resource that's been provided free of charge for the industry, for all retailers and brands and any industry partners, suppliers or airports. So that, thank you very much, everyone. And again, we're happy to share the presentation and deal with any questions that may come up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Derek. And you'll actually all be able to hear from both Derek and Clara and her colleagues during TR Marketplace Digital Forum at the end of September, a 5-day event taking place from the 28th of September to the 2nd of October for live meetings. I know Michael would like to share some more information with you on our TR Marketplace Digital Forum.
Indeed. Thank you, Charlotte. Yeah, we're delighted to report actually the TR Marketplace Digital Forum has now attracted and continues to draw huge interest, with around 90 brands now exhibiting via their digital brand hubs. There's no physical or virtual stand building is required either. The event offers just simple yet sophisticated brand exposure through the hubs, which enable exhibitors to showcase an unlimited number of products with images, videos, and even host their live video meetings. If I just move forward to one slide. Up. There you go, and you can see some of the exhibiting companies there on screen. One second. No, these, yeah. Sorry, I'm just finding my notes here. So one of the the main USPs of the TR Marketplace Digital Forum is that the brands can contact all visitors to show through the online visit can contact all visitors to the show through the online visitor directory. So they're able to book their meetings from 1 month before the start of the event, which is only in 3 to 4 weeks' time now. And if we just move forward one slide there. As you can see on screen, there are already a large number of buyers already signed up, with hundreds of visitors from over 60 companies. And similarly, the simple yet sophisticated environment of the TR Marketplace means visitors can easily search for and connect with brands without any navigation through exhibition halls, whether real or virtual. And if you're just moving on to the program, as mentioned earlier, both the Mindset and the IIR teams will be providing exclusive insights across a range of topics during the TR Marketplace event. These will include category-specific insights, where you'll have a number of webinar and workshop sessions with presentations and recommendations from both Mindset and IIR, as well as brand and retailer perspectives during those sessions. The IWSR and Mindset will also be revealing data from InSpirit, their new travel retail data hub for the wines and spirits category. This new research tool will be premiered exclusively during the TR Marketplace, so we encourage all wines and spirits companies to sign up to ensure they don't miss out. We also have some groundbreaking sessions on the future of travel retail, digital and data, a cruise and ferry retail session, an in-flight webinar, and one on sustainability and travel retail. So lots to look forward to. If you want more information, please do contact us. You can see my email on screen there for any information about the webinars. And you can find out more information from about the Brand Hub opportunities from our colleagues Nigel, Ben, or Helen. And you can see their addresses on screen there now as well. Charlotte, over to you.
Well, without further ado, I'd be delighted to invite Trevor to make his presentation next. Trevor, can we see your video? And please share your presentation too.
I just got to stop sharing my screen.
Okay. Can you hear me okay, Charlotte?
Yep, we can hear you loud and clear, and we can see your presentation too. So go ahead.
Thank you. Okay, well, thanks very much, Charlotte and Michael, and also just want to say really good presentations, very insightful presentations from Clara and Derek. And I think the initiative that Derek and his company have put forward with airports, that global perspective is excellent as well. Okay, so my presentation, I've decided to make it a little bit lighter with very few numbers and statistics. I've called mine the cultural turn-ons to succeed in travel retail. And what I mean by turn-ons, it's actually, these are the cultural drivers that really that appeals to specific markets. What interests them the most? What really turns them on? And I've chosen 3 specific markets to sort of link these cultural turn-ons to. We've got India, we've got China, and we've got Japan. I'm going to start with Japan first. And with Japan, the very first cultural turn-on is the power of cute. And anyone who's been to Japan, I'm sure you would have noticed there are a lot of cute things, cute people, and cute attire and wear that people have in Japan. I had the wonderful pleasure of living, working, and researching, doing research in Japan for 8 years, and I experienced cute on a daily basis. Basically, cute permeates Japanese society, and from the early 1970s, it started becoming a business. And as of today, really, there are many, many businesses in Japan that have made millions and millions and millions of yen from this power of cute. In short, cute sells in Japan, and cute is very, very important to the Japanese consumer and Japanese traveler. So while I go through these examples of cute or cuteness in Japan, I'd like you to think out there with your business, with your company, with your shop, with your airport, what can you do with this cute phenomenon to entice, to engage, to appeal to the Japanese traveler and consumer. So here are some examples of cute in Japan. First of all, we've got an airline. It's an old picture, this, but it's just a great one of showing these cute characters from Pokemon on All Nippon Airways. This is actually a bit of a child minding daycare kindergarten at the new Chitose Airport in Hokkaido in northern Japan, where you pay $3, $4, $5 for an hour, and you can leave your child there. They're with a registered childcare assistant, kindergarten assistant, who will do arts and crafts with the person. And this is at the airport. And very often the parents sit alongside the children and have a great experience as well. It is all about cute, very appealing to the children, very, very appealing to the parents, of course, as well. Here's actually a Hello Kitty restaurant in that same airport, New Chitose Airport. As you can see from the food display here, it is cute. It is really appealing. It makes you want to try it, to taste it. What is it going to taste like? It's really enticing you to spend money. In Japan, cute sells, and it makes Japanese people feel happy, makes them feel warm, it makes them feel fun, and it makes them want to spend, to enjoy. So I'll keep saying it. Cute sells in Japan. What can you do with your business? Here's another shop in Narita Airport, down in the bottom hand corner. You can see with the love heart around it, the Doraemon doll, which again is a bit of a magnet. It appeals a lot to the Japanese children and adults. And this term cute, by the way, is across all age groups, across all genders for that matter, and even across all working spaces, whether it's white collar, blue collar office workers, factory workers, laborers. Cute appeals to one and all in Japan. It's quite an amazing phenomenon. And here you can see, here's this young guy here on his mobile phone, and even his keyring, he's got something cute. And in Japan, even the youth version of their mafia, the Yakuza, and it's called the Bosozoku. These are young teenage kids on little mini motorbikes. They are right into cute. Fascinated by cute sells in Japan. Here we have some matchsticks here. You can see very cute. You've got the little piggy, you've got the panda, you've got the honeybee, and you've got the rabbit. Again, cute sells. They love buying. They like using. Makes people feel good. Here you've got some sponges. You've also got the lid there for the over the storm drains in Japan. Everything you see everywhere you go, it's about cute. Here is Line. I'm sure most of you are aware that Line is the equivalent of Facebook in Japan, of WeChat in China. Line is what a lot of Japanese young people use to communicate with each other on social media. And these are the characters that came out when Line started. Very famous characters. These characters will now open up stores. They have their own images. Swarovski crystal dolls. These cost a fortune, by the way. As you can see, $3,200 US each. Very popular, cute sells in Japan. And finally, again, who could resist walking past a restaurant in an airport, or even in the travel retail space, something like this? You've just got to want to try it. What can you do in your business? Cute sells in Japan. Okay, let's go to the next market. Now we're going to look at India. And with India, the cultural turn on for India is it's all about status. Anyone who's gone to India would know that it's a very hierarchical society, and that's not just because of the Hindu caste system. With all religions, there is hierarchy across everything in India. There is hierarchy, even across the Sikh religion, with the Jain religion, even the Muslim religion in India, there is hierarchy. So when two people meet, they will never be equal. There will always be one person higher than the other, and this person has status. And with status, it makes them feel good. It makes them feel important. It makes them feel wanting to spend, to show they are a very, very important person with status. So there are two things that businesses can do. The first one, when it comes to status with the Indian traveler, the Indian consumer, the first thing, the most important thing to do is to acknowledge them, to greet them. And there is no better way to greet your Indian customer, your Indian guest, to say hello in the language, in the way that they are so used to being greeted, and that is namaste. With a smile, a small nod forward with the hands coming together like that, very gentle, namaste, good morning, welcome to my store, to my airport. This means a lot. Honestly, if you ignore them, if you don't say anything, do not expect them to feel comfortable, to feel happy to come into your store. The second action that you can take and your teams can take with your Indian market is this, and it's a really simple one, is this: when an Indian consumer, passenger guest comes into your store, you know what they want. If they're after watches or they're after makeup, once you know what they're after, take them immediately to the most premium offering for the product they're after. Don't start mid-range, definitely don't start low. Always take them to the most premium offer to start with, and you will find, even if they can't afford it, you've given them that status by taking them to that. Touches them, makes them feel good, entices them to want to spend with you. With India, it's all about status. And finally, China. Our business has been working with the China market now since about 2003. We've been working with a long time. And probably the most common question I'm asked is, Trevor, how do we entice the Chinese person to spend? How can we engage them, get them into our stores? What means the most to them? Well, there are 5 F words that are really, really important for you all to understand and to remember from this presentation. The first one is this: face. It's all about face with your Chinese consumer. 2 things with face: always do your best to give them face, and always do your best to ensure that they never lose face around you and with you. If you can remember those 2 points with face, you'll get their business and they will remember you. Okay, the second F word, family, very important. The family are going to be the first travelers that move from China. After that, when they come, and you're going to get those 3 generations, the single child, the 2 parents, the 4 grandparents, that's your 4, 2, and 1 traveling together. They're going to want to travel together post-COVID. What is going to be your offering? How are you going to look after them? How are you going to give the family face? It's very, very important. Start thinking about it now. The next F word is friends. After traveling with family, they're going to want to begin traveling with their friends. And their friends are the ones they trust the most after their family. Again, with friends, however, it's all about brag factor. What can you do to help them with their friends to have brag factor? To say, I got the best. I had the best deal. This was the most amazing meal. I got this bag and no one else could have it. This is what they want with their friends. They want to brag about it to their friends. Very, very important. Okay, the 4th F word is food. You know, with Chinese people and Chinese culture, you know, when you greet someone, and often when I see my father-in-law who's Chinese, he'll say, hello, Trevor. And the next thing he says to me is, have you had breakfast already? Or have you had lunch already? Have you had dinner yet? These will always be his introductory words. Food is very important. It touches their hearts. And if they've had a good meal, if they know what they've eaten, and why I'm saying that is when they travel, when they go overseas, it's important they know what they're eating. If you haven't got menus translated, if you haven't got a QR code that explains the meals, what is being presented, what is on the menu, you won't get their business. Food is very, very important to the Chinese traveler. And the last one is fun. And this is something that I think most businesses tend to forget with your Chinese traveler. They want to have fun. How can you help them to have fun with you in your airport, in your store, in the duty-free environment? These are some pictures from a wedding, a family wedding I went to in southern China a couple of years ago. It was a small wedding, only about 2,000 guests. I had a lot of fun, as you can see, and I was the only foreigner there, the only non-Chinese person there. I was made to feel very, very welcome indeed. They want to have fun. What can you do to ensure that they have fun? Because if they have fun, they will want to have a good time and they will want to spend with you as well. So just summing up, Japan, the power of cute. Cute sells. In India, it's all about status. Give them status. Make sure they feel they've got high status and they will spend. And with China, those 5 F words: face, family, friends, food, and fun. Think about that. How can you encompass that in your business with your products you're offering, your team that is selling and interacting? If you can think of those and take them into consideration, you'll do well. So just like to say thank you very much. I've sort of rushed through those 3 markets, but you want the turn-ons. You want to know what turns them on. That's what turns these 3 important markets on. And just there on that final slide of mine, up on the top left-hand corner, just some QR codes. The first one is our mini site. The other one is my personal WeChat if you wish to get in contact. And thank you, Charlotte. Over to you, and I look forward to questions later on. Thank you so much.
Before you head off, just quickly, I wanted to actually bring Chloe on as well at the same time, because I know that you two have worked closely before in the past, and I just actually wanted to get you both of your reactions to obviously not Trevor's presentation, but to the earlier presentations actually.
I was just going to actually say on Trevor's presentation, I've worked with him for a few years, and he's actually always used a 6th F word when he's spoken with me. Didn't quite cover that one off in the presentation, Trevor.
No, maybe another presentation, Chloe.
I'm intrigued now, I really am. So Chloe, perhaps I'll go to you first. From the first 2 presentations of today's webinar, was there anything that really struck you as perhaps surprising or very interesting, or concurred with your experience at Brisbane? Are there any things you'd like to highlight?
Yeah, I think, look, there's a lot of research going around at the moment, and I mean, those first 2 presentations were really, really insightful, and I definitely want to dig into Clara's presentation a lot more. I think for us it's about, and I mean, I just know through research that we've done ourselves at Brisbane Airport, and I definitely understand why people feel that element of trepidation at the moment with regards to travel. I mean, we see it in our own terminals at the moment as well. But I think what I'm hopeful for is that when people do start traveling, you know, I like to call, and a lot of us in the industry call it, the romance of travel. And I really feel hopeful that once international travel does start up again, you know, that allure of being able to travel, there's a lot of people just absolutely, you know, just chomping at the bit to be able to get out and actually go on a trip. And I think, you know, particularly part of the Australian culture, engaging in duty free is really ingrained in that travel experience. I know that we've got a fantastic duty free operator in Lotte Duty Free at Brisbane, and I definitely take a lot of comments from Derek as well about how do we actually adapt, how do we evolve, how do we, you know, when we come from the environment of retail where it's all about touch, taste, feel, smell, when that is compromised because we're not actually able to engage in that, how else do we do that? But I feel definitely respect the numbers. I think they definitely make a lot of sense, but I do have hope that that allure of travel and that allure of retail and that pent up, I guess, desire for shopping and shopping, that luxury premium experience, I really hope that we do see that on the shop floor when it does come to life.
I'll come back to you, Chloe, in a second. And Trevor, the same question for you, really.
Yeah, thanks, Charlotte. I agree completely with Chloe. I actually took notes from Clara's presentation. It was in regards to passengers not wanting to go to certain countries. And I noted with the USA in not wanting to visit the USA, particularly out of China, Tier 2 city residents were stronger in their intent not to travel to the USA over the Tier 1 residents, which I found very, very interesting, just seeing that now there is a sort of a change as the Tier 2 residents, I guess, are gaining more and more traction as consumers in China. That to me was very, very interesting. And as I already mentioned, I found the fact that Derek talked about the fact he wants to have this global approach to really getting into all of the airports to make sure that there is standard global approach to this safety, the hygiene, the distancing, etc., the regulations. It has to be a global approach. An ad hoc approach simply will throw consumers and turn consumers and travellers off going around.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that, Trevor. We'll bring you back for the Q&A session at the end. And if I'm just going to concentrate on Chloe for the moment, I have a few questions for you in particular about Brisbane. Can you tell us about your various strategies at Brisbane Airport on engaging frontline sales staff and how you've worked with retailers on this?
Yeah, absolutely. So we've run quite a comprehensive retailer engagement strategy now for, I'd say, about 8 years. I've been with Brisbane Airport for about 12 years now. I came from a retail background within the airport before I actually joined the corporate side. Could be the good side, could be the bad side, but you know, I'll leave that with you guys to decide. But what I really saw when I first started was there was varying degrees of, I guess, resources and maturities from the business. We had really large scale global operators, but then we also had quite small operators that didn't have the luxury of HR teams or training and development budgets, etc. But for us, it was about, and going back to what both Derek and Trevor have touched on now about consistency, it's about consistency in service and experience. So not only the consistency that our customers and passengers were receiving from that check-in through to security, through to the shop floor, but all the way through to every shop floor that they touched. And we didn't want the fact that some people had budgets for training and development and some people didn't, to get in that way of that customer experience, because at the end of the day, that's what we're all here to do. We're here to sell and we're here to serve the customer. So our strategy really was around providing a lot of training opportunities, and we've done a lot of work with Trevor and Lily from TravConsult over the past, I think, probably about 9 years now, across both the Chinese, Indian, Korean and Japanese markets. We also were having early discussions about rolling out a new program for the Vietnam market as well, when we were in the process of trying to move forward with Vietnam Airlines. It was also about providing our retailers with development opportunities, so one-on-one consultancy opportunities with a number of different amazing consultants out there from, you know, Future Foods, Brain and Poulter, Australian Retailers Association, and a number of different comms programs. And I will say it probably took about 12 to 18 months. At the time, it was quite a new concept for an airport landlord to be providing that level, I guess, of service. And, you know, it certainly wasn't about us coming in and trying to tell people how to suck eggs and run their business. I mean, we've got some amazing experienced operators. It was about coming in there and helping try to level the playing field and saying, look, we've got these services that we'd like to offer you. And hopefully they'll be aligned to what you're offering your own teams if that's available to you. So that's really evolved and progressed over the years. And I guess for us now, the challenge is, you know, as would a lot of people on the call, you know, the market's changed, sales have changed, budgets have changed. So for us moving forward for this financial year, it's about how do we draw on the expertise of ourselves in-house and our retail partners to help continue to deliver these programs and engage our retail staff, but in-house opposed to moving out of house, because unfortunately at the moment the funds simply aren't there.
Of course. And when you were talking about those specific programs, can you tell us about some of the differences that you focused on for the Chinese, the Indian, Koreans and the Japanese, and how those approaches differed?
I'm a bit nervous because Trevor might like press the get the wrong answer or something like that. So let's see if I've been paying attention. But for me, it was more about, and I guess for our retailers, understanding, I guess, the maturity of those different markets. You know, how long has that market actually been traveling to Australia, and where is that level of education that we actually need to give them? So are they frequent travelers to Australia and we don't know how to engage with these guests, so we need to upskill ourselves? Or are we learning together? Are they a relatively newer market to engage? Is it their first trip over to Australia in the case of some of the Chinese guests that we were seeing, in which case it's, I guess, a bit of education from both ends. I think another one for me was around language. So not just verbal, but the non-verbal cues as well. So for example, in Brisbane, a lot of our Indian customer base do have a very proficient grasp on the English language. So the spoken word isn't so much of an issue, whereas for our Korean guests or our Chinese guests, as an example, at the time, many years ago, we probably didn't have the right mix of staff that spoke the language. So it was really about working with Trevor and Lily and understanding those non-verbal cues. So how can we still give face to the Chinese customer? How can we still give that extreme, you know, respect and politeness that the Japanese customer demands, but doing that all without uttering a single word? We did try to run a couple of different sessions where we were trying to work on the language skills, but at the end of the day, like Trevor mentioned, you know, gentle hands, about a nod of the head, eye contact, knowing who you're interacting with, how can be just as powerful as the spoken word. And I also understand from being a retailer myself, there's a lot of things that you've got to take care of when you're on the shop floor every day. And if I try to throw 4 different dialects of Chinese into the mix, it's probably taking it a little bit too far for the 3 a.m. shift on a Saturday morning.
Mm-hmm. And I'm interested to hear how you view in a post-COVID environment, do those specific cues, those specific behaviours and how you interact with the customer, does that almost have to be simplified, or does it become actually more complicated?
Yeah, I think that is a really good question. And just to be transparent, at the moment, our domestic market, whilst our domestic travel has dropped by about 80%, so in the Brisbane environment, we're currently seeing around 12 to 15,000 passengers a day, whereas pre-COVID we were at about 45 to 50,000 a day. So that's starting to pick up. We've got about 60% of our retailers trading at the domestic terminal at the moment. International, however, we're currently averaging only about 300 passengers a day, whereas normally we would be around the 17,000 mark. And we certainly, I guess, aligned to a lot of other Australian airports, we certainly don't see those international markets recovering in the short period of time. So I guess our focus, coming back to hygiene, is around, we like to say all passengers are the same, but all passengers are different. So whilst there are a lot of differences, whether that be traveller type, nationality, culture, etc., there is the commonality that a lot of the other speakers have spoken about, which is people want to travel, they want to feel safe, they want to feel secure. And I guess I'd like to extend that to absolutely, that's about our passengers and our customers, But to me, it's also about our staff. I imagine, you know, we've got a lot of people on the line here who have hundreds, if not thousands, of frontline retailers in this environment. And a big part for us has been about ensuring, I mean, I don't want anybody walking through the door of the airport to come into work if they don't feel comfortable about being there. So I think step one to me is really about ensuring that, I guess, us as a landlord with our contractors, but also our retailers and their own staff, making sure that the communication is really open, they're in there, they feel comfortable, because when we are on the shop floor and we're ready to go, it's really about serving our customers and trying to generate as much money as we can to kind of claw back what we've lost. And I truly don't think that we can expect staff to be in that mindset if we haven't given them the support and the tools or whatever that PPE may be, that's either a requirement or something that makes the staff member feel more comfortable. So that for me is kind of step number one. Step number two, as I touched on before, we will be bringing a lot of our services in-house just for this year coming up. Everything that we have done also, it's not just been that we've plonked a consultant in there and got them to run off and do their thing and come back to us. It's something that ourselves, we have gone on the journey with the retailer as well. So we will sit with them side by side and understand what they're learning so that we can do it together. It's not about going in and referring to a checklist that, you know, somebody did on a business one time 6 months ago. It's about working through it together. And I think I hope that that's the relationship we've built with our retailers over the years, and that they know we're not just coming in, you know, with a stick or anything like that. We genuinely want their business to do better, because at the moment, you know, we're all in the same boat. Retailers are hurting. They're really hurting. And you know what, airports are really hurting as well. So at the moment, it's about sticking together and working through this together. And I guess our team really looks forward to, I guess, being shoulder to shoulder with the guys at Brisbane Airport and getting through this. And every change we can make, every experience we can draw on to try to, I guess, improve that experience and generate a few extra dollars is something that we're going to be really knuckling down and focusing on this year.
Certainly. Well, thanks so much, Chloe. We will return to you for the Q&A session after we've spoken to John, and thank you, Trevor, also. So I'll say goodbye briefly to you both, and I'd like to invite John to share his webcam.
Is that working yet?
Oh, I can hear you. I can't yet see you, but I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay.
There we go. Nice to see you, and thank you for staying with us all this time. Yeah, it would be great to actually ask you a few questions, focusing on your experience, your very, very rich experience in the industry, looking at various different channels, and of course coming across various different passenger profiles, segments in your time. Obviously, we haven't got time to talk about your whole, your whole experience in this short time. But first of all, actually, I would like to get your reaction on some of the presentations that you've heard today. There's been an awful lot of data and insight to listen to. But was there anything that really struck a chord with you, or you found particularly interesting that you'd like to kind of discuss first off?
I think that we're facing such a perfect storm in the industry right now. I'm not sure everybody understands the scale of it. I think it may actually be more affected in the US than many other places. Mm-hmm. But one of the presentations I really enjoyed was the one where we talked about how we can actually engage customers again using the word cute. And the other one with the 5 Fs. They're very positive presentations in the light of what we're facing now. We haven't really discussed it very much, but you know, there have been 663,000 global deaths of COVID. There's 215 countries affected. The airlines in the States have had to be bailed out to the tune of $50 billion. So I think what we really need to give some serious thought to is how we can make these passengers feel safe to fly again. Mm-hmm. And that's going to encompass the whole journey from getting from their home to the airport, the passage through the airport, TSA screenings, everything else that they need to do, and then actually getting on an aircraft and feeling safe in that environment. I think, and maybe I'm answering more than one question, but I think PPE is going to be most important in this, particularly PPE when we can actually show the proven effects of it.
Mm-hmm. It might be an idea to talk about the kind of profile of the different passengers from the Americas, seeing as obviously you have quite a lot of experience with DFAS. Yeah. Coming across the tastes, the preferences and the behaviours of the American passengers. And obviously now, as we've discussed, as we've mentioned various times in this webinar, you know, the US is facing an incredibly difficult time. You know, not only the people themselves, but the administration, the economy, and lots of different aspects. In your experience, what do they want to hear, or what do they want to see when they're traveling for the first time after such a long period, when they finally do make international trips? What do you think, what sort of communication would be appropriate for, but let's start with the sort of North American traveler.
I just think they need this sense of security for each aspect of the journey. You know, even just the process of going through TSA right now is enough to make people feel very uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. I'm here in Fort Lauderdale, and you can't walk in a store without wearing a mask. Mm-hmm. You can't get on an airplane in the domestic US without wearing a mask. So that whole environment, until we have an antivirus, travelers are going to become reluctant to travel anyway. Mm-hmm. The ones that are going to be traveling, in my opinion, are not going to be traveling for business. Most of the companies that, even in an international travel retail at the moment, have a travel ban in place, and it's going to run until at least the end of this year. So I think the aviation's customer is actually family and friends. Mm-hmm. And we have to think about how we attract that type of audience and how we make them feel safe. Mm-hmm. I have a couple of ideas of what can be done. The first one is the PPE. The second thing is to group families together on an aircraft and distance them from other families. So you're not automatically going to be sat next to, or possibly somebody who's got COVID, because there's a form of self-distancing on the aircraft.
Almost like a social bubble.
Exactly. And I think it needs to happen very soon. The airlines have been bailed out here with $50 billion. Most of them are not going to last for another month without a further bailout. And personally, I think that the government should be putting this money into research, because that's the single thing that will change the travel factor for the consumer.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned grouping travellers in families or families and friends, and I guess that kind of approach would work well for, as we've just heard from Trevor's presentation, you know, family is extremely important for the Chinese customer, for instance, so perhaps they would feel very comfortable with that scenario.
The Chinese definitely, the Indians definitely, the Italians definitely, but actually when you have a pandemic like this, I believe everybody's family has got much closer than they used to be. And so as it does become safer, I think family and friends are an ideal audience to be attracted back into the airline business.
It's good to hear your sort of view on what's going on in the US, because obviously we've been hearing a lot on Asia and things. Yeah. Have you got a comment potentially about the European market? We've actually heard some interesting information. Forgive me if I've got this wrong, Clara, but there is a large percentage of the European audience which seems to be still keen to try and test products still. You know, obviously there's still a number, still a number that will not be, but it's interesting to hear that kind of demographic, all that sort of that customer group is very interested and keen to test products. Now, is there a way, do we think, that we can leverage that particular passenger profile in airports and in flight to really kind of boost sales to that customer?
Well, I think you saw some great ideas with the presentation about the airline in Japan. I think it was ANA who'd made the aircraft interesting to look at, a fun thing to travel on. They'd created a children's family play space so the kids weren't sat at a boring aircraft gate waiting 3 hours to travel. I think making the journey a Disney experience rather than getting on an aeroplane is what's going to change our industry for the better.
Mm-hmm. And perhaps, as you mentioned, teaching or trying to reassure customers about the safety and well-being, perhaps in the Japanese customer, as you alluded to, cute animation and fun sort of cartoony characters is a good way of communicating to those passengers that there is strict health and safety measures implemented where they're traveling, to make them feel more comfortable with that signage. And perhaps that wouldn't work quite so well with some of the other demographics we've been talking about here today, but it certainly would work with Japanese customers. So potentially, airports that will receive again a lot of Japanese customers, that would be the sort of signage that might work well for them.
Yeah, and we're in an IT connected world today. So even when people are shopping for a flight and they might be looking at the Ryanair website or EasyJet's or Turkish Airlines, I think the airlines should be very proactive in saying, this is what we're doing to keep our customers safe.
Indeed, yes. Pre-trip communication. Mm-hmm.
We've lived in a world with the aviation industry where there's very little loyalty these days, other than from the business traveler. Everybody's looking for the cheapest possible flight. Well, now we've got a sea change. Everybody's going to be looking for the safest flight. And I think that's a major change for the industry, and one that can be taken advantage of.
Indeed. Well, thanks, John. We're obviously running a little over time, but it's been great talking to you. I'd now like to invite all our speakers back to join us. So if you could all share your web cameras. Hopefully everyone is still here. Hello, welcome back, everybody. Nice to see everyone. We have had a number of questions come through. I was wondering, actually, it might be an appropriate time, actually, to bring back poll 1 to see if we've seen any significant difference, particularly in part 2, actually, of the question. Bearing in mind, actually, the topics that we just touched on, John, just now, actually. I don't know if that's going to... there we go. Perfect. Thanks very much, Michael. So again, referring back to the poll that we had at the start, should airports and their commercial partners adopt different strategies and approaches when communicating to different nationalities and cultures in general? Now, this was fairly conclusive earlier on. So actually, I'm more interested in part 2, which is, are different communications approaches necessary to reassure passengers about health and safety when traveling in the post-COVID environment? Now, if you could all submit your votes now.
Just coming up to about half the number of attendees have voted so far.
I'd just like to remind you all, while we're waiting for the results, that please do, we're entering the Q&A session with all our panelists now, so please do send in lots of questions. I'm sure our panelists would like to be grilled at the very end of a 2-hour webinar. And if they don't want to,
it's 11:30 p.m. over here in Australia, so don't grill me too hard. It's past my
Okay, how are we getting on, Michael?
Okay, we're just about 2/3 done. So you got another 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. We're going to end the poll and share the results. You should see those on screen.
Okay, so the first poll, 91%. I believe that was the same percent we had at the beginning of this. Oh, and actually ever so slightly less for the second part, which is interesting. It was 86%, I think, before. So perhaps we've not quite convinced our audience enough. Maybe we can do that in our Q&A session, or perhaps there's an argument that we don't need quite so much segmentation. Anyway, that's up for discussion now. Actually, in fact, I'd like to sort of kick off with that for our panel. I mean, in terms of the safety and well-being of passengers, you know, obviously resources are limited, funds are limited, and you know, we've talked about global standards as well, and ensuring that across the board. So in some respects, do we have the resources and funding to approach the health and safety communication part so individually or by nationality and customer in different demographics, etc.? Chloe, I'd like to send that question your way first, please.
Yeah, sure. And look, I think I'd like to start by saying, you know, health and safety is absolutely critical. And if you don't have the money, find the money. If you can't find the money, find a way. And for us, that has been, like, I'm not going to lie, I've personally been sticking COVID safe social distancing floor decals down on the floor in my suit and my heels in the food court of Brisbane Airport. Can't afford to get a signage contractor out, but we've still got our own workforce to do it. And I think every company would agree that, you know, health and safety is critical and you need to find a way to do it. And I think, you know, it's not about the glitz and the glamour. It doesn't need to be the best sign. It's about communicating a really, really important message in the most simplistic way. You know, I know a lot of people, there's a lot of messages already for people to absorb in an airport environment, and this is a whole nother layer. So I think it's about keeping it simple, walking that passenger journey yourself, and finding the way, because we can't be complacent in that regard at all.
Mm-hmm. In some respects, I guess perhaps it's easier for a regional airline to tailor its marketing and its communication approach because it knows more about the customer demographic, because obviously, you know, it's likely to have more domestic passengers. Trevor, you might have a strong opinion on the question I just asked. I mean, obviously you would deem it very important that the different passengers, different nationalities, have a different communication approach in terms of the sort of hygiene standards, etc. Do you have any ideas how people could be creative still in this very kind of clinical sort of area? How can the airlines and the airports and crews and ferry operators, how can they have a tailored approach even to something like this?
Well, I think it's a really good question, Charlotte, and I think what John said as well was great. I mean, use the concept of cute for the Japanese and use the cute phenomenon to get the message across. I think what needs to be consistent globally is this same message about wearing the masks, about the social distancing, about the hygiene standards, etc. That must be a consistent message, but each nationality's culture receives messages in different ways at different times. So I think that's going to be the biggest challenge. But if the message is consistent and it's tied to a specific culture, then people in general should understand a lot quicker. It's basically what I'm trying to say is if we just took everyone wear a mask and put it out in English to the world, not everyone's going to get it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, indeed. Yeah. And Derek, in terms of staff training, I mean, this is kind of, this period is obviously a little unknown, and there's protocols in place for the very kind of almost at the basics. But the more advanced kind of what the data points to, again, I come back to what Clara was saying in her presentation. There are certain passengers that are still interested in trying and testing products, and there is a possibility to still do that in airports with the disposable single-use cups in terms of the liquor category, which obviously poses us some problems in terms of sustainability. Unfortunately, pushes us a little bit backwards in that respect. But is there a way? Are you using that data, sort of data like that, from Mindset, to help inform kind of not only the safety in terms of protocols, but actually leveraging and really boosting the sales numbers?
Well, I think the first point on that, when we get down to the category insights and the category training at the end of September with the TR Business Connect marketplace, I think we'll get down to the detail there. But I think most critically, you know, Trevor alluded to it, and Shelley is absolutely right. Like you know, health and safety are the critical factors, and restoring confidence is the big factor. So people, you know, again, people want to travel. Yes, you know, from the data, it's showing the older age groups are postponing the opportunity to travel after lockdown up to 12 months. But the communication is a global communication piece, that the airports are serious, that the retailers are serious about safety, about health and safety. So those basic messages are critical. With regard to testing, you know, a retailer many of the listeners would be familiar with is Sephora. And Sephora have developed some really interesting digital screening where you can actually get a color of a makeup, and on your face it'll superimpose the lipstick of the makeup. So you know, as we said in the presentation, the whole digitization has been speeded up by anywhere 3 to 4 years. So brands and retailers need to quickly engage in that marketplace. But you know, a lot of the basic hygiene factors are good common sense. But it's restoring that confidence to show, you know, that there is spacing in the stores, that there are the ability to limit the number of customers within a store environment. And we've all visited, or certainly I've had 3 experiences now with the retailer having heat sensors at the door. It's a small little screen, and you go up to it, and you know, it's just picking up body temperature, but you get a red and a green. And I must say, when I was in the store, I felt really confident, you know, that I wasn't running the temperature, but I felt this is a really good test, and anyone in the store and the staff all went through those protocols. So you feel confident. When you feel confident, you will spend. And there's been huge spending on the high street across a number of categories. So it's up to the travel retail market to, you know, when normal business or normal, there is a level of where all shops are open, is to the word John had alluded to was the Disney experience. It is about customer experience, and it is about the customer journey, and it is about the touch points. Training is critical to make our staff confident, and yes, to be able to sell cross-culturally and to understand the messaging. So they're just some, you know, general insights, but on the more specific categories, we'd be happy to share those at the end of September.
Perfect. Yes. Well,
Charlotte,
thank you for that additional plug. Yes, Michael?
I was just going to say that it's been mentioned quite a few times, and Derek just mentioned it again, about the shift to digital and online. And this is an area where the industry has been traditionally slow on the uptake. Chloe can obviously bear witness to the need for that. Chloe, maybe you want to talk us through briefly how the B&E platform came into effect, and the consumer uptake on that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think I recently held a panel similar to this a couple of months ago with a few from the shopping centre industry here in Australia, so representatives from CBRE, Lansini Property Group and Vicinity. And obviously shopping centre world and airport world are quite different, but I think the one similarity that we saw is this has really brought a lot of that digital innovation forward. I know ourselves, we've been toying with the idea of having an e-commerce site for a few years, to be completely honest. And the team actually managed in-house to pull together this e-commerce platform in 16 business days through the Shopify platform, which if you asked me 3 years ago if that was possible, I would have said absolutely not. I would have needed a web dev and all this stuff. And I think that what this has allowed us to do is work with our retailers. So at the moment, we've got 5 retailers on, including our duty-free operator, really shift product. About 70% of our transactions are coming from the Southeast Queensland region, and customers are really enjoying the opportunity to, obviously the product isn't duty free. We've had to, the retailer has had to pay the duty on that. But again, if we weren't put in the position and our retailer wasn't put in the position that they had millions of dollars of stock on hand that they simply needed to move to get some liquidity going, we probably wouldn't have been able to punch this site out the way that we did. So we're already looking into the next probably fortnight turning on the click and collect function of that. So not only for domestic travellers who may want to order online at home and actually collect their product from a store in terminal, or alternatively, are there customers that aren't travelling? And we're very fortunate down the road from Brisbane Airport on our land, we actually have like a neighbourhood shopping centre. How do we actually activate an area there where people can come and actually collect their orders so they don't even need to be travelling? So we've really tried to open that market up. Another thing that we've kind of been pondering for quite some time is the pre-ordering of food options, particularly again with domestic business travellers. We've got a lot of frequent travellers and FIFO workers, so fly in, fly out workers in the Brisbane market who, you know, they've got travelling out of Brisbane Airport down to a fine art. They do it every Monday, Friday. How do we turn on that feature really quickly to enable people to actually pre-order their coffee, pre-order their food, give me a 15-minute window, click a button when they're parking, I'll come out and collect it. So I think that digital's been around forever. It's just about, it's really sped up, I think. It's forced us to just find a way, like I was saying with the signage, we've just had to find a way to get it done, which is exciting. I'm a big believer in progress, not perfection. It's not perfect. Can it be better? Yes. Will it get better? Yes, it absolutely will. But I think we've been able to help move a lot of stock for our retailers already. And had we procrastinated and waited to make it the best website you've seen in your whole entire life, we wouldn't have moved any stock. So I think interesting times, but I think a really good nudge for us to move forward with a few of those things that we've been dreaming about.
Thanks, Chloe. And John, with your experience across different retail sectors, what's your opinion on how ready the industry is on going digital?
I think the industry, certain players in the industry have been digital for a long, long time. If you look at Singapore Airlines with Chris Shop, I mean, they put together with DFAS at the time, probably the most sophisticated website that any airline had ever operated, and they've continued to finesse it. They've now got it down to the stage where you can order from the duty-free program whilst you're in a taxi on the way to the airport, and the product will be delivered to you on the plane. And you need a time frame of ordering 1 hour before to make that happen. That's the kind of innovation that I think is going to encourage people to shop. And it's one of the reasons why I think we need to get more sophisticated in the way that, by the way, this is how we're going to take care of you while you're on board, and then use that as the link to say, and by the way, while you're on board, if you'd like to order your meal, you'd like to order some duty free, you just need to go through our menu. It's called the KISS principle. Keeping life simple. Stupid, I thought, was the last word.
Thanks, John. Charlotte?
I was going to say, actually, the move, well, the sort of acceleration in digital for some companies, because they haven't perhaps put the groundwork in perhaps quick enough. It's obviously certainly accelerating now, but that digital or receiving communication through digital means is perhaps more something that the Asian passenger has been much more used to over the years. But now, I guess, other markets like the Europeans, everyone's going to want to move or expect the omnichannel experience even more so. Whereas it was kind of an approach for kind of the Asian travellers more so. Now it's definitely something that all retailers are going to have to engage with going forward. I'm sure, Trevor, that's been your experience in the past and in terms of all your research that you've done. I mean, the downside of that, obviously, as we've heard from Clara's presentation, was that there are specifically millennials and Asian millennials that will be engaging more with social media and YouTube, and even business travelers, they'll be looking more at their devices and their iPads. So again, even more important that we are able to take their attention away from those things in the travel retail environments to make them look up and go into the shops. Now that's where the sort of targeting to the individual nationalities really comes into play, because if we're able to really target it looks like the targeting is more bespoke and personal. That is really going to cut through all the other noise that unfortunately at this time is going to be amplified, as we've heard from Clara's research.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that it's challenging times, yet the times are very exciting as well. And something I mentioned in my presentation that is huge throughout Asia and yet still struggling to get a lot of ground in the West is the usage of QR codes. And QR codes are massive in China, throughout Japan. QR stands for quick response. They were developed in Japan in the 1960s. And they are very, very useful, very easy, and they can just get information from A to B so quickly. And once people get comfortable with them, they're very, very appealing. Time is money. QR codes are effective. They take the costs away from big, heavy signage. I think that's just another way of making things happen. And again, going back to John's thoughts about, we've got to get these safety messages across. QR codes are a great way to do it. So tough times, challenging times, but I'm optimistic. Exciting times nonetheless.
I'd like to add something to your point.
Please.
Yeah, one of the effects of the pandemic here in America is that all the restaurants have stopped doing menus, and you have to read a QR code to be able to read the menu. So there's a whole generation of people now that are using QR codes in their daily life. So I think that's going to become a much more used tool for everybody.
Can I just add, just to your point also, I think with that, while we talk about different segments as well, that it's also about, I think, making sure that we don't intimidate any customer segment. So with QR codes, I mean, obviously that's, normal day to day for some of us, but, if my parents were to travel out as an example, they would have no idea. My mum can't even take a photo without putting her thumb over the lens, let alone download a QR code. So, we also have a lot of retailers just resorting to disposable, printed in the back office menus as well. So I think it's really good to have both options available, because not all of our customer segments, I think, are as advanced as one another. And I think, whilst airports are a high touch environment, there's still things that people want to touch. So how do we make them less dirty, if I could use that word, more of a disposable touch experience?
But to come in there, Shirley, and the point that you were making earlier about the cost of health and safety, and this is critical. I mean, two completely free resources to the industry. One, and I think the Duty Free World Council really needs to be complemented in providing the course free of charge on the return to work protocols. So by simply enrolling on the protocols, your staff, you've done that from a no cost point of view. Retailers, brands, employees can all sign up. So I think that is a free offer. And separately, IIR have also developed what's called the Global Travel Retail Community, GTR. So on gtr.com, you can enroll free of charge. You can share experiences from around the world with colleagues. You can post any updates that you may have, any ideas. you can communicate with colleagues from around the world. So there are two really important free resources for the industry to pivot from and to build upon. So, you know, we can look at this as a very costly communication exercise, but if we're smart about it, there are two free resources out there to be able to use and to be able to engage with our staff and with our customers or our guests, has been used earlier. And this is where cost isn't an issue. This is about initiative and it's about communication, and it is about training.
Thanks, Derek. Chloe has been fairly silent during the Q&A session, so we'll bring you in. There's been a few questions to you about the sample size and the reach across the globe, about the research you presented earlier. Obviously, you only share the tip of the iceberg of the data when you are presenting. You're not a public service, so you can't give it all away. There's already a great deal of data in your presentation earlier. How much deeper does the data go in the full research that you just conducted recently on this topic?
So it actually goes much deeper because so this survey was conducted with 2,500 travelers around the world. So that means that we really have very robust sample sizes by region, as you've seen, but also by category. So we've actually offer much more tailored reports specific by categories to our clients, where they can actually see specifically, let's say for liquor, what's the behavior of spirit shoppers and how does it differ from the other categories. But it would also be possible to, for example, do a drill down on any specific demographic that you've seen today. Say someone is interested in really learning everything about the Asian traveler and how it will behave in the future. We could do that as well. So the idea today was just to highlight some of the most notable differences.
Okay, and you've recently released this research. How's the response been from the industry so far?
We've had a lot of traction actually with this report. Obviously, you know, over the past few months, research has not necessarily been the priority for our clients. We understand all companies are struggling with their own issues, but we were very, very happy to see that, you know, coming with this topic, which seemed to be very relevant to most of our clients. We've received a lot of positive feedback, a lot of questions, and lots of clients subscribing to this product because we can see there's still a hunger for data. And that many of our clients understand that the way to move forward from a crisis such as this one is to really understand the consumer. Another example of this is that we have a subscription-based product called B1S, and we've noticed that our users have become more active than ever during the lockdown period, especially. So our clients, they were maybe less busy than usually, and they really took the time to go on the platform, play around with data, extract insights. We've received really a lot of queries, questions. So we think it's very encouraging because it tells us that moving forward, the decisions are going to be even more data-driven, and they're really going to be made with the consumer's expectations at the core of the brand's decisions.
Okay, thank you. Charlotte, I think we're coming to the end of our time here.
Yeah, we could continue for another hour, but I think both our panelists and our participants may drop dead. No, it's been really interesting, and thank you so much, all of you, for your fantastic insights and from very different points of view as well, very different perspectives, different parts of the world. So I thank you. Really grateful for you joining us here today. I'd just like to revert to all of you really for your final thoughts and contributions. Perhaps if I can start with Chloe. And just any messages or kind of words of advice potentially for the industry.
Yeah, look, I mean, as I mentioned, I think the main thing at the moment is keeping ourselves, our families, and our teams safe, and you know, obviously driving that commercial return is really important. But I think the most important thing right now is our people. There's still a lot of uncertainty out there, and there's still a lot of people needing that direction. And I've seen some amazing managers and businesses out there doing that. So I hope everybody stays safe and well. And probably just if I can throw something in there, this is unfortunately my last travel retail webinar for a while. So unfortunately, I will be finishing up in the airport world in the next couple of weeks. So to those who I've met or not met, thank you for having me as part of this beautiful industry, and I hope that I will return once COVID has finished wreaking havoc with us all. So thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure, and I'll be cheering everybody on from the sidelines.
Wish you all the best, Chloe.
And Derek?
Yes, well, I suppose my two key points of call to actions are the sign-ups for on the dutyfreeacademy.com for the return to work protocols, and also encourage people to sign up for the GTR community, where they can support and share insights and learnings. And what we're really, I think, to use the time positively for this, for planning and being in a very strong position for future growth. And I think the evidence is showing there is significant pent-up demand, and 2021 there is significant opportunities for the airports, the retailers and the brands who really get close to their customer, their traveler, and look to enhance that whole learning, that whole travel experience and shopping experience. And it has to be world class. And that's what the consumer is looking for. That's what the traveler is looking for. But this feeling safe environment to build confidence is the critical point.
Thank you, Derek. And Clara?
Well, I think from my point of view, in terms of insights, I think this was only the starting point. Travelers have told us how they expect to behave once they start traveling again. Then the next steps is going to be to actually understand what they actually do when they start flying again. I think there's really a lot of opportunities there, because a lot of things that we just assumed were the norm for our industry are going to change. So yes, there's a lot of threats, a lot of uncertainty at the moment, but also an opportunity to take a step back and think again about how we can better understand our consumers. Again, things that we just thought were set in stone will probably change a lot. So maybe a word of caution that in the next few years, we shouldn't just assume that doing things the way we used to do them will work. So of course, it goes without saying when we talk about health and safety, but I'm also thinking about deeper motivations of why people are shopping, what do they expect, and so on. All of that is going to be changed. And I really liked Chloe's example of how because they had no choice, they had to launch that website. So I think we're going to see a lot of other examples like that, of where this crisis is actually also going to provide us with an opportunity to move on with things that maybe have stayed stable for too long in our industry.
And John?
I've actually got to go. I've got another appointment, but I'd like to thank you for organising this get-together. It was very interesting, and I'd just like to hope everybody stays safe and stays creative.
Thanks,
Cheers,
John.
now.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
And finally, Trevor.
Oh, thanks, Charlotte. Just very quickly, I think we should all keep in touch with our loved ones and dear friends, because not everyone's coping in the same way, and it's just important to keep an eye on people. There's a lot of mental anguish out there. It's increasing, and it's important to keep in touch with people to help them to keep sane mind and to keep stable. I just want to say Chloe is an absolute gem and an absolute incredible person, one of the smartest airport operators we've ever had the pleasure of working with. Any airports out there still online, come and grab her, because she's absolutely brilliant. She will turn possible sales into killer sales without a problem. So all the best to Chloe, and to you, Charlotte, to Michael and the entire TR business team. Well done. Please keep the webinars happening, because that's got to be the best way to keep industry connected and involved. So thank you to each and every one of you.
Thank you. It's very kind.
I think we've done the rounds, haven't we?
I think so. That's everyone done. And over to you, Michael, for some final housekeeping.
Okay, before I do that, I just want to say my final words. I think from what I've been hearing and wearing various hat from the past, having worked in industry associations. Derek mentioned the work that the Duty Free World Council is doing, and I think all the trade associations are working very, very hard on behalf of the whole industry. And my message would be really reach out to the associations. If you're not a member already, please join the associations. They really need your support, especially now when the industry is in its biggest lull it's seen in many, many years. It's not always easy for the association to do their work, particularly now. So it's not the time now to cut your budgets and say we can't afford to pay the membership fee. On the contrary, this is the time you need to be joining the associations. Similarly, the insights from Mindset are invaluable. Every month they're producing different research reports across different themes. Dig into that data. There's lots out there. Part of it's complementary, a lot of, not all of it, thankfully for them. And again, as to reiterate what Trevor said, these webinars we've been putting on for the last few months now, it's been great support from across the industry. Please do come and join them. They are complementary, so do get involved and send in your questions, send in your ideas for themes. Michael@trbusiness.com. You've got my address. It's been up on screen. And you, as we mentioned earlier, TR Marketplace, the end of September, it's going to be a fantastic opportunity. We're going into lots of data across different themes, about 20 different webinars going on with some really exciting topics and speakers coming up, which we'll be announcing very soon. So thanks very much. And on a housekeeping note, all I've got to say is the presentations are going to be online, as this video will be as well very soon after the webinar. In the next few hours, give dear old Andrew a chance to write this up. And thanks. We look forward to seeing you at the next event and at TR Marketplace very soon. So thank you to all of you from Florida to Dublin to Lake Geneva, Gold Coast and Brisbane, and of course London.
Thanks very much. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care. Stay safe all. Bye-bye.
Bye.